In this lesson, we are going to create a line trace by channel function, and this way we are going to shoot the bullet from the weapon. So let's go ahead and click on the player and open up the player base. And inside of here, let's go down to the code we wrote before. So add the shoot weapon, and here is where we want to add the line trace by channel. But before that, we have a small bug with the equipped weapon. So whenever we shoot, whenever I loot a weapon right now, if I click terrorist, I loot something. If I shoot right now, it doesn't give me a buck because I switched the weapon. However, if I don't switch the weapon, so if I directly just pick this one up and I start shooting, it's going to give me an error here because we're only setting the equipped weapon whenever we're actually switching with our keyboard keys. So let's copy this equipped weapon and let's go up wherever we loot the weapon. So over here in the looted weapon, and we're going to set the equipped weapon whenever we go through this code here. So whenever we are unarmed, we are going to set the equipped weapon here. So after this delay here, let's go ahead and paste it and let's connect it. And I'm also going to move all of this away so I can see here. And I'm going to connect it here and then drag from the looted weapon to this one. And again, you can click on reroute nodes here, make some, and make it organized. Okay, so that should be working well now. So now we're also setting the equipped weapon whenever we are looting here. Okay, so I'm going to move this away as well, increase the size of the comment, something like this. Okay, so that now is fixed. The next thing I want to do is here in the weapons. So let's go to the weapons and open up the weapon base. Let's now hide these spheres. We don't really need them anymore. So I'm going to click on the collision sphere and select it again here, hidden in game. And I'm going to do that in the weapon base so it does that for all of them. So if I save now and then I try to play the game just to check if that is fixed, and you can see here that is fixed now. Okay, so we don't really need the spheres anymore. Okay, so let's go ahead and make the line trace by channel. So let's go down to the code we wrote before down here, and let's start doing it from here whenever we loop the code. So let's drag from here and write line trace by channel, and let's select this function. Now it looks complex, but it's actually really, really easy to understand. So in the line trace by channel, it needs a start location and it needs an end location. So the start location is wherever you are right now, and the end location is wherever I am aiming right now with my crosshair. So this is what we have to tell it. And the way we get this information is if we right click, and first we have to access the player controller. Now try to do it yourself if you remember how to access the player controller. And we can do it together now. So you can write get controller, and you can get the controller of this player pawn. And just like before, we have this get player controller reference from the interface, and you can now drag from this, and we want to, if you just write camera, we want to get something called a camera manager. So if you just scroll through all of this, try to read what we have this one, get player camera manager. And with this one, we are able to get precisely where we are aiming at with our crosshair. So getting this camera manager, we're going to drag from this and say get camera location. This is our start position. So the start position right now is wherever I am right now, here standing here as the player in the middle of my screen. So now we have to tell it the end location is wherever I am aiming at with my crosshair. So the way to do this first is let's drag from this and say get actor forward vector. So we're getting the forward direction for this camera manager. And then we are taking this and multiplying it. And the reason why we are multiplying it, let's just right click first here and let's change this pin. We don't need it to be a vector. Let's change it into a float and let's multiply it with something really big, for example, 20,000, something like that. The reason why we do this is we're getting the forward vector, so the forward direction of this camera, and then we're multiplying this by a lot because we want it to reach the distance over there at the wall. So we're multiplying it, and then we have to say plus here. So we're adding the start location. We're adding the start location together with this line for the end location. And that way we get the end location. So you can imagine here, I'm standing as a player and we're getting the start location. This is where I am standing right now. And we're basically just creating a line and we're adding it with the start, and that will make it be there at the end where I am aiming at right now. I know it's very confusing to understand as a beginner or the first time you ever do this, but try to think about how this makes sense. So now when we add this together, let's add it here to the end, and that should do it. So remember also to connect this execution pin and go ahead and make reroute nodes. Okay, so now this should work. And over here, now we have something called out hits, and you can see it's a blue pin. And if you have noticed before, we have used blue pins before because our get weapon info is actually a blue pin as well. So a blue pin means that this is a structure. And with structures like before, we can drag and say break. We can break structures, and you have all of this information that you can use. So you can use you can take this line trace by channel. So you can take the line you have made here and you can get the location at where you actually hit this line. You can get the actor that you hit with this line trace by channel. You can get the time, the distance, and a lot of things here. So we don't really need a lot right now. The only thing before we do this is we want to drag from this Boolean and do a branch, because we don't want to continue our code if this is not valid. So whenever we actually hit something, we want to go ahead and continue the code. So always nice to have this, else you will sometimes get an error. And the next thing is we have this blocking hit. So whenever we actually hit the something with this line, we want to continue the code as well. So make a branch here as well. And also we want to make sure that it is the player we are hitting to make some damage, because we don't want to hit any random actor. So with the hit actor, I'm going to, just like before, we have done this before. So say actor has tag, and then you can write player. Remember, we added the tag player. And if you don't remember, you can click on, I believe it's the class defaults. And if you search for tag, remember we added the tag player to the actor. So the actor has tag player. We have that for all of the players because we have added it to the player base. And now we can drag from this and say and Boolean. So if we are hitting something, so we have a blocking hit and the actor we hit is a player, then we want to go ahead and apply some damage. Okay, so with this one first, we can just write a print string to see if it is actually working. And over here for the debug, you can actually change this to persistent, because then you can see the line you are shooting and you can see if it is actually doing something wrong or something correct. And also for the actors to ignore, you don't want to shoot yourself. So here, ignore self is already on, but sometimes I have some bugs, like sometimes when I develop in my own time. So I like to drag from this and say make. So now you can make an array, and then you can drag from here and say self. So now it's actually going to ignore this player here. So actors to ignore self, and it's already doing that here. So maybe this is unnecessary, but I just like to have it here for safety. If you want to block other actors so you don't like ignore other actors so you can't hit them, you can always click on the plus and add another actor here. But for now, let me right click here and remove this array element. Okay, so that was it for the line trace, and let's compile and let me just click on play and see what happens. So if I play as the server and select terrorist, and I select, for example, a weapon here, and I shoot, and nothing is happening right now. So let me just quit here and let me take a look at why this is not playing. And it is actually playing, but it's playing a bit delayed. So if I just try again and I just hold my mouse, it's actually playing. You can see it's now creating the lines wherever I shoot. So it's actually shooting to that distance over there, whatever I am aiming, but it's shooting at a late response. And the reason why it does this is we need an initial shot here, because whenever we are shooting, remember the time you set here for a timer, it's actually going to take that time before it plays it. For example, if let's say I wrote 3 here for my timer and I compile and I click on play, there goes 3 seconds before it actually shoots. So now I'm holding my mouse, and you can see after 3 seconds, it's going to shoot the shot here. So the time you have set to it here, it's actually going to wait that time before it begins looping. So to fix this, we need an initial like shooting event that will run this code once before we run the code here. And that's how we fix this issue. So let us do something called an initial weapon shot. So let me just drag from this and make a custom event. And I probably need to move all of this away so we have some space to work with. So this event here, I'm just going to call it initial weapon shots. So this one is just running one time to make sure that this is running before this timer by event is running. So here after the do once, this is only going to be run once. So we can say initial weapon shot. So it's going to shoot just one time before we actually start shooting. So we don't have any delay in the shooting. So let's click on play now. And if I pick something up and I shoot, you can see it shoots like it shoots immediately. We don't have to wait for anything. So now it is working, and let's close this down. And I believe we get an error right now. If I don't have anything and I try to shoot, you can see I can shoot something and I also get an error. And if I click on it, it says there's an error with this one. And for this, we can do something here. Whenever we shoot the weapon, we can make sure that we actually have a weapon. And the way we do this, we can either like right click here and convert this to a validated get and go ahead and do something like this. And we can also do something else. So let's keep this and let's take this equipped weapon type and drag from this and say if this is not equal to the unarmed state, then we can go ahead and shoot, because it doesn't really make sense to shoot whenever we are unarmed because we don't have a weapon. So let us connect this. And later on, we will probably add, like if we don't have ammo, when we add ammo, if we don't have ammo, we don't want to shoot either. So we are going to add that later whenever we add the ammo to the game. All right, so right now we are shooting the weapon. However, we are not hitting the player. So if you see here, if I click on play and I take the terrorist here, and I take my other client and I select terrorist and I like take a weapon here, and let me just take it as the server. If I shoot as the server on the player, you can see it is hitting the player. However, nothing is happening. And you can see whenever I hit something, the line behind it becomes green, and that means it knows that it hits something. However, we told it that we only want to react whenever it is the player we are hitting. So whenever it's not the player, it's not really going to do anything, but it knows that it hit something. However, for the player, it's not really hitting anything. And let's go ahead and adjust the collision settings for the player in the next lesson.